The snow turned red beneath her fingers, and Elena Carter realized with brutal clarity she was dying. Not in a hospital bed, not surrounded by family, alone in a Montana blizzard with a baby growing inside her that would never draw breath. This is the story of how betrayal and blood became the foundation of an empire, how a woman with nothing chose darkness over safety, how love emerged from violence. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far Elena's story travels. Because what happened next changed everything. The champagne tasted expensive. That should have been Elena's first warning. Ryan never bought expensive champagne. Hell, Ryan barely remembered to buy toilet paper half the time. But tonight, their 2-year anniversary, he'd pulled out a bottle that probably cost more than their monthly groceries. The bubbles tickled her throat as she laughed at something he said. She couldn't remember what now, and set her glass down on the kitchen counter of their shared apartment. "I have something to tell you," Elena said, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd been carrying the secret for 3 days. 3 days of staring at the pregnancy test she'd hidden in her makeup bag, rehearsing different ways to say it. "We're going to have a baby. You're going to be a father. Our family is starting." Each version felt simultaneously too casual and too dramatic. Ryan was scrolling through his phone, barely looking at her. "Ryan." She reached across the counter and touched his hand. "Put the phone down. This is important." He glanced up, irritation flickering across his face before he smoothed it into something approximating attention. That look. She'd been seeing it more often lately, like she was an interruption to something more interesting happening elsewhere. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Elena watched his face, waiting for the smile, the shock, the joy. Anything that matched the cautious hope blooming in her chest, despite everything telling her this wasn't the right time. They weren't ready. The relationship had been rocky for months. Ryan's expression went blank, completely, utterly blank. "What did you say?" "I'm pregnant, 8 weeks. I know we didn't plan this and things have been weird between us, but no." He stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "No, absolutely not." Elena's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, no? It's not a question, Ryan. I'm pregnant. That's the situation." "Then handle it." His voice was cold, clinical, like he was telling her to handle a leaky faucet. "There are clinics. I'll pay for half." The room tilted. Elena gripped the counter to steady herself. "You want me to... You're not even going to think about this?" "Think about what? Us playing house?" "Elena, come on, look at us. We can barely afford this shitty apartment. I'm trying to get the promotion at work. You're still figuring out what you want to do with your degree. A kid right now would ruin everything." "Ruin everything," she repeated slowly. "That's how you see our child. As something that ruins things." "Don't put words in my mouth." "I'm using your words." Her voice cracked. "You just said..." "I know what I said." Ryan grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. "I need to go clear my head. We'll talk about this later when you're being rational." When she was being rational. Like she was the crazy one for thinking the man she'd spent 2 years with might actually want to talk about this instead of running away. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer, just headed for the door. Elena followed him into the living room. "Ryan, don't just leave. We need to figure this out, together. That's what people do when..." "People?" He spun around, and something in his expression stopped her cold. "You want to know what people do, Elena? They don't trap each other. They don't spring this shit on someone during what's supposed to be a nice evening." "Trap you? I didn't plan this. You think I wanted to get pregnant right now? But it happened, and we have to deal with it like adults instead of..." Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, then buzzed again, and again. Ryan's face went pale. That's when Elena knew. Before she picked up the phone, before she saw the messages, she knew. The expensive champagne, the distraction, the cold fury when she told him about the baby. It all clicked into place with horrible clarity. She grabbed her phone. The messages were from a number she didn't recognize, but they'd sent photos. Lots of photos. Ryan with another woman, kissing her against a brick wall outside what looked like a bar. His hand in her hair, her leg wrapped around his hip. Ryan and the same woman in bed. Multiple photos from different angles, different times. His face visible in every single one. A screenshot of text messages between Ryan and the woman discussing when they could meet up while the girlfriend was at work. Another screenshot. This one made Elena's blood run cold. Ryan. I'm telling her tonight. Anniversary dinner seemed like good timing. Unknown woman. You sure? What if she makes a scene? Ryan. Then she makes a scene. Either way, I'm done. Already got my stuff half packed. The final message sent just 20 minutes ago. Unknown woman. How'd it go? You free yet? Elena looked up from the phone. Ryan was standing frozen by the door, his hand on the knob. You were already leaving, she said quietly. Before I told you. You were going to break up with me tonight anyway. Elena, who sent me these? He didn't answer. Who sent me these? Her roommate, probably. Sarah's been paranoid that someone's been following us. Thought it was you at first, but... Sarah. Elena laughed, but it came out wrong, broken. You're already on a first-name basis in front of me. How long? Does it matter? How long? 6 months. He said it like he was ripping off a Band-Aid. 6 months, okay? And before you start crying and making this about you being some victim. 6 months. Elena's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on the couch. You've been with her for 6 months, half our anniversary. You were sleeping with her while telling me you loved me, while we were... The pregnancy. 8 weeks, 6 months. The timeline crashed over her. Is it even mine? Ryan asked. The question hit like a physical blow. Elena's head snapped up. Are you seriously asking me that? You're the one who's been cheating for half a year, and you're asking if... You can't prove it's mine. For all I know, you've been... Get out. Her voice was steady now, deadly calm. Get the fuck out of my apartment. Our apartment? My name's on the lease too. Then I'll leave. I'll pack my shit, and I'll leave, and you can have your empty apartment and your Sarah and your fucking promotion. How's that? Ryan's expression shifted, not to guilt or regret, to relief. That's probably best. I'll give you a couple hours to get your stuff together. I'll be at Sarah's. He left, just like that. The door clicked shut behind him with a soft finality that seemed impossibly quiet for something that was destroying her entire life. Elena sat on the couch, her phone still clutched in her hand, and tried to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth, like her therapist had taught her during the anxiety attacks she'd had in college. But this wasn't anxiety. This was her life disintegrating in real time. She looked around the apartment, their apartment, except it had never really been theirs, had it? The furniture was mostly hers. The couch she'd bought off Craigslist, the bookshelf her dad had helped her assemble, the TV she'd saved up for. Ryan's contributions were scattered throughout. A gaming console, some barbells in the corner, a jacket slung over a chair. 2 years. 2 years of her life invested in someone who'd been planning his exit for 6 months while sleeping with someone else. And now she was pregnant. Elena's hand moved to her stomach automatically. There was nothing to feel yet, nothing visible, but she knew. The positive pregnancy test was still in her makeup bag in the bathroom. 3 pink lines that had changed everything. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. I know you don't know me, but I'm Sarah's roommate. I thought you should know what he was doing. I'm sorry it came out like this. You deserve better. You deserve better. The words blurred as tears finally came. Elena let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. She timed it on her phone, then stood up and walked to the bedroom. She owned 2 suitcases. Both were in the closet, gathering dust from the vacation they'd planned last summer that Ryan had canceled at the last minute. Work emergency, he'd said. Sarah, more likely. Elena pulled them out and started throwing clothes inside. She didn't fold anything, didn't organize, just grabbed armfuls of shirts, jeans, dresses, underwear, and stuffed them in. Her hands were shaking so badly, she could barely zip the first suitcase. The bathroom was next. She swept her toiletries into a grocery bag, including the pregnancy test in its little plastic CVS bag. Evidence of a future that would never happen the way she'd imagined it. In the kitchen, she grabbed the coffee maker, the nice one she'd bought herself for her birthday, and her favorite mug. The champagne bottle was still on the counter, half full. Elena picked it up, walked to the sink, and poured it out. Watched the expensive bubbles swirl down the drain. Her laptop, chargers. The few pieces of jewelry that mattered, her grandmother's locket, the earrings her best friend Natalie had given her. the framed photo of her parents from before the divorce. She left the pictures of her and Ryan face down on the dresser. It took 45 minutes to pack her life into 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and a sense of complete unreality. Elena loaded everything into her car, a 9-year-old Honda Civic that Ryan had always complained about, and stood in the parking lot of the apartment complex trying to figure out where the hell to go. Not Natalie's. Natalie was in Seattle for a work conference until next week. Not her mom's. Her mom had remarried and moved to Florida 2 years ago, started a new life with a new family. Their relationship had been strained since the divorce. Telling her about the pregnancy, the breakup, all of it, Elena couldn't face that phone call. Not her dad's. Her dad lived in a retirement community in Arizona, and they talked maybe once a month. Awkward conversations where they both pretended everything was fine. Elena had $847 in her checking account. First and last month's rent on even a studio apartment in Billings would take most of that. She'd been working part-time at a marketing firm, barely enough to cover her half of the rent and expenses. Ryan made more, paid for more, held it over her head in small ways she'd learned to ignore. She sat in the driver's seat of her Civic, hands on the steering wheel, and realized with crushing clarity that she had nowhere to go. No safety net, no backup plan. At 26 years old, pregnant and alone, she had 2 suitcases and less than $1,000 to her name. The snow started falling as she pulled out of the parking lot, big fat flakes that stuck to the windshield faster than the wipers could clear them. The weather report had called for a major storm system moving through Montana tonight. Blizzard conditions, dangerous roads, stay home if possible. Elena drove anyway. She didn't have a destination, just drove through Billings as the snow got heavier, the streets emptying as people heeded the warnings, and hunkered down. She passed the movie theater where she and Ryan had seen their first movie together, the restaurant where he'd told her he loved her, the park where they'd had picnics last summer, where she'd thought maybe, just maybe, this was it. This was the relationship that would work. Stupid. She'd been so stupid. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Elena? A woman's voice. Young, uncertain. This is Sarah. Ryan's. He told me you two broke up tonight. I wanted to call and apologize. I never meant for things to happen this way. Elena's grip tightened on the steering wheel. You've been sleeping with my boyfriend for 6 months and you're apologizing for how things happened, not for doing it in the first place? I know you're angry. You don't know anything about me. Ryan said you two hadn't been happy for a long time, that it was basically over anyway. Ryan's a liar. Elena's voice was sharp. He's a liar and a cheater, and if you think you're special, if you think you're the one he'll stay faithful to, you're wrong. 6 months from now, he'll be doing to you what he did to me, and I hope when it happens, his next girlfriend doesn't call to apologize for the way things happened. She hung up. Her hands were shaking again. The snow was coming down so hard now she could barely see the road. She should pull over, find a motel, wait out the storm. But she kept driving. Out of Billings, onto Highway 89, heading north toward nowhere. The road was empty. Everyone else had the sense to stay inside. Her phone rang again. Ryan this time. She sent it to voicemail. He called back immediately. She declined it. A text came through. We need to talk about the apartment. Don't be dramatic about this. Dramatic. She was pregnant, homeless, and heartbroken, and he was worried about her being dramatic. Another text. Also, you can't just take the coffee maker. We bought that together. Elena pulled over so violently the car fishtailed on the snowy road. She grabbed her phone and typed with shaking fingers. I bought it with my money for my birthday. You gave me a card you bought at a gas station. You get nothing from me. Not the coffee maker, not explanations, nothing. Lose my number. She threw the phone onto the passenger seat and pulled back onto the road, her vision blurred with angry tears. The storm was getting worse. The highway stretched out empty and white, snowdrifts forming along the edges. Elena's headlights cut through the swirling snow, illuminating a world that felt increasingly unreal. She thought about the baby. 8 weeks. Barely the size of a raspberry, according to the pregnancy app she'd downloaded, tiny fingers forming, heart beating, even though she couldn't feel it yet. Ryan had called it handling the situation. Like the baby was a problem to be solved, a clinic visit, a procedure. Done and back to normal. Except Elena didn't want normal. Normal was Ryan. Normal was waiting for someone to love her the way she deserved while settling for someone who loved her conditionally. Normal was small dreams and smaller apartments and pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. What did she want? The question surprised her. She'd been so focused on what Ryan wanted, what made sense, what was practical, that she'd forgotten to ask herself. The baby moved, or she imagined it did. Too early for movement, she knew that. But she felt something. A shift. A presence. A future taking shape in the most inconvenient, impossible way. "What the hell are we going to do?" she whispered to her empty car, to the storm, to the tiny cluster of cells that would become her child. The answer didn't come. Just more snow, more empty road, more miles stretching out into the dark. Her gas light came on. Elena glanced at the dashboard. Quarter tank. She should have filled up before leaving Billings, but she hadn't been thinking straight. Hadn't been thinking at all, really. Just running. The next town was... She wasn't sure. She'd been driving for over an hour, maybe longer. Time felt strange. The road signs were buried in snow, unreadable. Her phone rang again. Not Ryan this time. Her mom. Elena stared at the screen, torn. She hadn't talked to her mom in 3 weeks. Their last conversation had been stilted, formal. "How's work?" "Fine." "How's the weather?" "Cold." "How's Ryan?" "He's good." All lies. Work was unfulfilling. The weather was miserable. Ryan was a cheating piece of shit. She let it go to voicemail. Couldn't handle that conversation right now. Couldn't handle the "I told you so's," the judgment, the suggestion that she move to Florida and start over under her mother's watchful, disappointed eye. The car hit a patch of black ice. For a moment, everything went weightless. The steering wheel spun uselessly in Elena's hands as the Civic started sliding sideways. She pumped the brakes. Wrong move. Some distant part of her brain knew that. And the car spun faster. Headlights. Coming toward her. Another vehicle on the road. Elena jerked the wheel, overcorrecting. The car fishtailed the other direction. The headlights passed, horn blaring. Then there was just snow and darkness, and the sickening sensation of losing control. The Civic left the road. Elena felt the moment it happened. The transition from pavement to shoulder to ditch. The car tipped, sliding down an embankment she couldn't see. Trees loomed up in the headlights. She threw her arms up instinctively, useless protection against the impact she knew was coming. The car hit something, hard. The airbag deployed, slamming into Elena's chest and face. Pain exploded through her nose, her ribs. The seatbelt locked tight, cutting into her shoulder. The sound of crunching metal filled her ears. Then silence. Elena sat in the wreckage, ears ringing, tasting blood. The airbag was deflating slowly, revealing the spiderweb cracks across the windshield. The engine was still running, making a grinding noise that didn't sound good. Steam or smoke, she couldn't tell which, rose from the crumpled hood. She tried to move. Pain shot through her left side, sharp enough to make her gasp. Her hands went to her stomach automatically, protective. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." Blood. There was blood on her jeans, not a lot, but enough, dark against the denim. Elena's hands shook as she touched it, trying to tell where it was coming from. Her head? Her face was wet with something. She touched her nose gingerly and felt the sharp sting of broken cartilage. Okay. Nosebleed. That was the blood on her face. But her jeans. The blood on her jeans was lower, wrong place, wrong kind of bleeding. "No, no, no." Elena fumbled for her seatbelt, but the release button was stuck. She yanked at it, panic rising. The grinding noise from the engine was getting louder. Smoke, definitely smoke now, was filling the car. She needed to get out, needed help, needed a hospital. Her phone, where was her phone? Elena looked around frantically. The passenger seat was empty except for... there, on the floor. Screen cracked but still glowing. She couldn't reach it. The seatbelt held her pinned, and leaning forward sent fresh waves of pain through her ribs. She tried the release again, pushing and pulling, but it wouldn't budge. The smoke was getting thicker. Elena coughed, eyes burning. The car was tilted at a steep angle, nose down in the ditch. She couldn't see the road from here, couldn't see anything except trees and snow and darkness. How far had she slid? How far from the highway? She tried screaming for help, but her voice came out weak, broken by coughing. Nobody would hear her. She was miles from anywhere, in the middle of a blizzard, trapped in a wrecked car. Trapped. The word echoed in her head. Ryan had accused her of trapping him. Now she was literally trapped, bleeding, possibly dying. The baby... She couldn't think about the baby. If she thought about the baby, she'd lose it. Whatever fragile control she had left would shatter. Elena reached for the phone again, stretching until her ribs screamed in protest. Her fingers brushed the edge of it. Almost. Almost. The car shifted. A grinding noise, then a lurch as the Civic slid a few more inches down the embankment. Elena's phone slid with it, disappearing into the darkness under the passenger seat. Fuck! She slammed her fist against the steering wheel. The horn bleated weakly. Think. She needed to think. The seatbelt. There had to be a way to cut it, or release it, or... Her keys, still in the ignition. Most cars had emergency tools, but her Civic was 9 years old and basic. No emergency kit, no fancy features. Just a dying engine and smoke and her, trapped. The cold was seeping in through the broken windshield. Elena's breath came out in visible puffs. Her jacket was in the back seat, unreachable. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. Not enough. Not nearly enough for a Montana blizzard. How long did it take to freeze to death? She'd read something once. Hypothermia set in faster than most people realized. Shivering, confusion, loss of consciousness. Then nothing. The bleeding continued, slow but steady. Elena pressed her hands against her stomach, as if pressure could stop it, as if willpower alone could keep the baby safe. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't—" Headlights. Elena's head snapped up. Through the smoke and snow, she saw them. Twin beams of light moving slowly along the highway above. "Here!" she screamed as loud as she could. "I'm here! Help!" The lights kept moving. They couldn't hear her, couldn't see the car down in the ditch. The horn. She hit it again, holding it down this time. The sound was pathetic, weak, but it was something. The headlights stopped. Elena held her breath, kept her hand on the horn. "Please, please see me. Please don't leave me here." The lights turned, started coming closer, angling off the road into the ditch. Someone had seen her. She released the horn, relief flooding through her so intensely she felt dizzy. Help was coming. She wasn't going to die out here. The baby had a chance. The vehicle, it looked like an SUV, big and black, stopped about 20 feet away. The headlights illuminated Elena's wrecked Civic, making the smoke glow. A door opened. Someone got out. A man, tall, wearing a heavy coat. He moved toward the car with steady, purposeful steps that didn't slip on the snow. "Hello?" Elena called out. "I'm stuck. The seatbelt—" The man appeared at her driver's side window, and Elena's words died. He was... striking wasn't the right word. Dangerous, maybe. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything about the situation in a single glance. Late 30s, maybe 40. The kind of face that made you instinctively cautious. "Are you injured?" His voice was calm, controlled. Accent there, Italian, she thought. "Yes, I think there's blood. And I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. I need to get to a hospital." He nodded once, then examined the door. Jammed. "Hold still." He went back to his SUV and returned with a tool she didn't recognize, some kind of pry bar. He wedged it into the door frame and pulled. Metal groaned. The door popped open with a shriek of protesting hinges. The man leaned in and produced a knife from his pocket. Elena flinched. "The seatbelt," he said, already cutting through the strap. "Don't move." The belt released. Elena gasped as the pressure came off her chest. The man's hands were surprisingly gentle as he helped her shift in the seat, assessing her injuries. "Can you walk?" "I don't know. My side, ribs most likely. I'm going to carry you. This will hurt." Before Elena could protest, he slid one arm under her knees and the other around her back. He lifted her out of the wreckage like she weighed nothing, and he was right. It hurt like hell. Elena bit down on her lip to keep from crying out. The man carried her to his SUV, not the passenger seat, but the back, where he'd already laid down what looked like a medical blanket. He set her down carefully. "Your phone?" he asked. In the car, under the seat. I need to call someone. Later. Right now, we get you warm and stop the bleeding. He stripped off his coat and laid it over her. Elena realized she was shivering violently. When had that started? Hospital, she managed. Need to get to. Closest hospital is 45 minutes in good weather. In this? He gestured at the blizzard. 2 hours minimum, assuming the roads don't close. You won't make it. Fear spiked through Elena. What do you mean I won't make it? I need a doctor. And I'm getting you one. The man pulled out a phone and dialed. Valentina, I'm 20 minutes out. Pregnant woman, car accident, possible internal bleeding. Have Marcus ready. He listened, then, yes, I'm sure, just do it. He hung up and looked at Elena. My estate is close. We have a private doctor. He'll stabilize you, then we'll get you to a hospital once the storm clears. Private doctor. Estate. The pieces clicked together wrong. Who are you? Luca Moretti. He said it like she should recognize the name. She didn't. I can't just go to some stranger's house. I need a real hospital. Miss. Luca's voice was patient but firm. You're bleeding, possibly miscarrying, in the middle of a blizzard. The hospital might as well be on the moon. I'm offering you immediate medical care and shelter, or I can leave you here to make your own way. Choose quickly. Elena looked past him at her smoking car, at the empty highway, at the snow falling so thick she could barely see 10 feet. She thought about this baby, about the blood on her jeans that was still spreading. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Luca nodded and closed the door. A moment later, the SUV was moving, pulling back onto the highway with a smoothness that spoke of serious winter tires and someone who knew how to drive in this weather. Elena lay in the back, wrapped in Luca Moretti's expensive coat, and tried not to think about what she was doing, getting into a stranger's car, going to his house, trusting him because she had no other choice. The alternative was dying in a ditch. She chose life. For better or worse, she chose life. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. Elena kept her hands pressed against her stomach, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Hold on. Just hold on. We're going to be okay. Through the rear window, she watched her wrecked Civic disappear into the storm, taking with it the last remnants of the life she'd known. Whatever came next, there was no going back. The gates appeared out of nowhere, massive iron things that looked like they belonged to a fortress, not a house. They opened silently as Luca's SUV approached, triggered by something Elena couldn't see. Beyond them, the driveway stretched through trees heavy with snow, winding up toward lights that glowed warm against the white darkness. Elena had expected a house, maybe a large house, given the whole private doctor situation. What she got was something else entirely. The building that emerged from the storm looked like it had been airlifted from the Italian countryside and dropped into the Montana wilderness. Stone and timber, 3 stories tall, sprawling in both directions with wings that disappeared into the darkness. Lights blazed from dozens of windows. And standing outside the main entrance, despite the blizzard, were 2 men in dark suits that did nothing to hide the obvious shape of weapons underneath. What is this place? Elena's voice came out hoarse. Home, Luca said simply, pulling up to the entrance. One of the suited men opened the SUV door. Up close, Elena could see the earpiece, the tactical stance, the way his eyes scanned the surroundings, even as he helped Luca extract her from the back seat. Not just men in suits. Guards. Inside, Luca ordered, lifting Elena again despite her weak protest. The guard held the door, and then they were through, into warmth and light and controlled chaos. A woman descended the grand staircase, and it was grand, carved wood with an iron railing that probably cost more than Elena's car had when it was new. She was striking in the way expensive things are striking. Perfectly tailored black pantsuit, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, makeup that looked natural but probably wasn't. Mid-30s, moving with the kind of confidence that came from always being the smartest person in the room. Upstairs, East Wing, second room on the left. Marcus is ready. Her accent matched Luca's, but her tone was sharper. This was someone used to giving orders and having them followed without question. Valentina, Luca acknowledged, already heading for the stairs. Elena caught a glimpse of the entry hall as they passed through. Marble floors, art that looked original and expensive, a chandelier that would have looked at home in a palace. Then they were climbing, and her focus narrowed to the pain in her ribs and the wet warmth spreading through her jeans. The room Luca carried her into had been converted into something close to a hospital suite. Medical equipment Elena didn't recognize. Monitors, a bed with rails, and a man in his 60s wearing scrubs despite looking like he should be retired on a beach somewhere. On the bed, the doctor, Marcus presumably, directed. His accent was different. American, East Coast maybe. Carefully. Good. Luca set her down and stepped back. Elena found herself lying on crisp white sheets, staring up at ceiling tiles that had been installed specifically for this room, while a stranger pulled on latex gloves and approached with a professional detachment that was somehow comforting. "I'm Dr. Marcus Hayes. I'm going to examine you. The bleeding, when did it start?" "After the crash, maybe 20 minutes ago? I don't know. Time got weird." "It does in accidents." Marcus's hands were gentle as he checked her pupils, her pulse, palpated her ribs. Elena winced. "Possible fracture there. We'll need to see what else is going on. Mr. Moretti mentioned pregnancy? 8 weeks. Any cramping? Pain in your abdomen beyond the impact injuries?" "I don't know. Everything hurts." "That's normal. We're going to do an ultrasound, check the baby, see where this bleeding is coming from. Miss Carter." Elena Carter. "Miss Carter, I need you to stay calm. Stress isn't good for you or the baby right now. Can you do that for me?" Elena almost laughed. Stay calm. She'd been dumped, betrayed, made homeless, and nearly killed in a car crash, and now she was in some mysterious compound with armed guards while a stranger poked at her injuries. Calm wasn't exactly in her repertoire right now, but she nodded anyway. Valentina appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Elena Carter, 26, Billings address, Honda Civic registered in her name. Employed part-time at Morrison Marketing. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants. Social media suggests recent relationship trouble. Elena's head snapped toward her. "How did you—" "Your license plate," Valentina said calmly. "Basic background check takes 5 minutes. You're clean. That's good." "Good for what?" Valentina didn't answer, just looked at Luca. Some silent communication passed between them. Siblings, Elena realized. They had to be siblings. Same sharp features, same dangerous elegance. "I need to cut your jeans," Marcus said, drawing Elena's attention back. "The bleeding needs assessment." "Do it," she managed. The shears were cold against her skin. Marcus worked efficiently, cutting up the inseam, peeling the denim away. Elena stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about how exposed she was, how vulnerable, surrounded by strangers in a place that looked less like a home and more like a compound with every passing second. "Luca." Marcus's voice had changed, more urgent. "I need you out." "How bad?" "Out. Now. I'll update you when I'm done." For a moment, Elena thought Luca would argue, but he just nodded and left, Valentina following. The door closed, leaving Elena alone with the doctor and the equipment that hummed and beeped around her. "Talk to me," Elena said. "Please. I need to know what's happening." Marcus met her eyes. "The bleeding is significant, but not immediately life-threatening. Could be from the impact, could be something else. The ultrasound will tell us more. But Miss Carter, I need you to understand, even in the best circumstances, first trimester miscarriage rates are high. After trauma like this, just check, please, just check." The ultrasound machine was portable, wheeled over to the bedside. Marcus squeezed gel onto her abdomen, cold, clinical, and pressed the transducer against her skin. The monitor came to life with grainy black and white images that meant nothing to Elena's untrained eye. Marcus was quiet, moving the wand, pressing different angles, his expression unreadable. "Is there—" Elena started. "There." Marcus turned the monitor toward her and pointed to something on the screen. "That flutter. See it?" Elena squinted. "There. A tiny pulse. Rapid, like a hummingbird." "Heartbeat," Marcus said. "Strong. 158 beats per minute. That's good, Miss Carter. That's very good." The relief hit so hard, Elena felt dizzy. "The baby's okay?" "For now. But you have a subchorionic hematoma, bleeding between the uterine wall and the gestational sac. It's causing the bleeding you're experiencing. Some resolve on their own, some don't. You're going to need strict bed rest, monitoring, and follow-up ultrasounds. No stress, no physical exertion, no travel. For how long? Until it resolves, or... Marcus didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. What about my ribs? 2 fractured, left side. Painful, but they'll heal. I'll wrap them. The nosebleed is superficial. Some bruising, minor lacerations, nothing requiring stitches. You were lucky, Miss Carter. Very lucky. Lucky. She'd been dumped, made homeless, crashed her car, and nearly lost her baby. But she was alive, and the baby's heart was still beating, so maybe that counted as luck after all. Marcus worked in silence, cleaning her wounds, wrapping her ribs in tight bandages that made breathing hurt less, hooking her up to an IV for fluids. By the time he finished, exhaustion was dragging at Elena like a physical weight. Sleep, Marcus instructed. I'll be checking on you every 2 hours. If the bleeding increases, if you have severe cramping, you tell me immediately. Understood? Understood. He left, and Elena was alone in the too quiet room with its medical equipment and its locked door that she was too tired to check. She should be scared, should be demanding answers about where she was and who these people were and why they had a full medical suite in their house. Instead, she closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. She woke to voices, low, intense, speaking Italian. Elena kept her eyes closed and listened, trying to parse meaning from tone since the words themselves were useless to her. Luca's voice, calm but edged with something sharp. Valentina responding, her tone clipped. An argument, maybe. Or just a very intense discussion. Then English, we don't know anything about her, Luca. She was dying in a ditch. So you bring her here? To the estate. With everything happening with the Baldinis, you bring a stranger into... She's not a threat. You don't know that. Valentina's voice was closer now, right outside the door. Her story checks out, yes. But that doesn't mean she wasn't sent. Doesn't mean she's not working for... She's pregnant, hurt, and her boyfriend just kicked her out. She's not an operative, Val. She's a woman who needed help. Your savior complex is going to get us all killed one day. My savior complex has kept this family alive more times than... The door opened. Elena kept her eyes closed, her breathing steady, feigning sleep. Footsteps approached the bed. Then Luca's voice, quieter. She's been through enough without adding paranoia to it. I'm not paranoid. I'm practical. We keep her until the storm clears. Marcus confirms she's stable. Then we send her on her way. Clean break. No entanglements. Agreed. The footsteps retreated. The door closed. Elena opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling, processing. Baldini's. The name meant nothing to her, but the way Valentina had said it, like a threat, like danger, meant everything. These weren't just wealthy people with security concerns. This was something else. She should leave as soon as possible, get to an actual hospital, figure out her life, get as far away from Luca Moretti and his armed guards and his sister's suspicions as geography allowed. But when she tried to sit up, pain lanced through her ribs and the room spun. Elena lay back down, breathing carefully, and accepted the reality. She wasn't going anywhere for a while. The next time she woke, it was to Valentina standing at the foot of her bed, tablet in hand, watching her with the analytical gaze of someone conducting an experiment. You're awake, Valentina said. Not a question. Elena pushed herself up carefully, wincing. How long was I out? 6 hours. Marcus checked on you twice. The bleeding has slowed. Your vital signs are stable. Valentina moved around the bed, pulling up a chair. We need to talk. About what? About the rules while you're here. Valentina settled into the chair like a queen taking a throne. This estate is private property. You don't leave this room without permission or escort. You don't use your phone, which Marcus retrieved from your car, by the way. Dead battery, cracked screen, but intact. You don't ask questions about our family or our business. You don't discuss anything you see or hear here with anyone, now or after you leave. In exchange, you receive medical care, shelter, and meals until you're well enough to travel. Do we understand each other? Elena stared at her. You make it sound like I'm a prisoner. You're a guest with restrictions. There's a difference. Is there? Valentina's expression didn't change. Miss Carter, my brother brought you here out of kindness. I'm allowing you to stay out of pragmatism. Turning you out in a blizzard would be both cruel and attract unwanted attention. But make no mistake, you are in our home, subject to our rules. If that's unacceptable, the door is there. The hospital is 40 miles south. I'm sure you'll manage. The challenge hung in the air between them. Elena thought about her fractured ribs, her bleeding that could start again any moment, the baby whose heartbeat was the only thing keeping her anchored right now. I understand, she said quietly. Good. Valentina stood. Your phone will be returned when you leave. In the meantime, if you need anything, press the call button. Someone will come. Who are you people? Valentina paused at the door. People who value privacy. Remember that. She left, and Elena was alone again with questions multiplying like viruses in her head. The rest of that first day passed in a blur of medical checks, bland food that Marcus insisted she eat, and sleep that came in fits and starts. Night fell early, the storm still raging outside windows that Elena discovered were reinforced glass, the kind that didn't break easily. She tried the door once, around midnight, unlocked, which was something. But when she stepped into the hallway, a guard materialized from somewhere, polite but firm. Miss Carter, back to your room, please. Not a prisoner. Right. Elena retreated, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to figure out what the hell she'd stumbled into. The second day brought Marcus with better news. Bleeding's nearly stopped. Hematoma looks stable. You're doing well, all things considered. Can I leave the room? Bed rest means bed rest. I'm going insane in here, Marcus considered her. Limited movement, chair by the window, bathroom privileges, maybe short walks in the hallway, but if the bleeding starts again, back to bed, I know. He helped her to the chair, unnecessary, but he insisted, and opened the curtains. Elena got her first clear view of the estate. It was vast. From her second-floor window, she could see formal gardens buried under snow, outbuildings that might have been garages or barracks, a high stone wall that ringed the entire property. And guards. More than she'd expected. Patrolling the grounds despite the cold, positioned at strategic points, moving with military precision. What is this place? Elena asked, not expecting an answer. Secure, Marcus said. That was all. Over the next few days, Elena's world expanded from the medical room to short, supervised walks down hallways lined with art that was probably worth more than her entire life's earnings. She saw other people, staff mostly, who nodded politely and said nothing. More guards, a woman who might have been a housekeeper. Everyone moved with the same careful efficiency, like clockwork pieces in a mechanism Elena couldn't quite see. She didn't see Luca again until the fourth day. Elena was by the window, watching snow fall in the gardens, when the door opened without knocking. She turned, expecting Marcus or maybe one of the silent staff members, and found Luca instead. He looked different in daylight, still dangerous, but less like a shadow and more like a person. Dark slacks, white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, expression unreadable. You're healing well, he said. Not a question. According to Marcus. He's good at his job. Why do you have a doctor on staff? The question came out before Elena could stop it. No, forget I asked. Not my business. Luca moved into the room, not quite approaching, but no longer maintaining distance. My father had a heart condition. Marcus lived here full-time for the last 3 years of his life. When my father passed, Marcus stayed. We have uses for his skills. Like patching up car accident victims? Among other things. Elena watched him, trying to read what was under the surface. Your sister thinks I'm a spy or something. Valentina thinks everyone is a spy. It's kept us alive. Alive from what? Luca's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. You should rest, Miss Carter. It's Elena. And I've been resting for 4 days. I'm going crazy. I don't have my phone. I don't know what's happening in the outside world. And everyone here looks at me like I'm either a bomb or an idiot. So excuse me if I want 5 minutes of actual conversation. For a long moment, Luca just looked at her. Then, surprisingly, he pulled up the chair Marcus had positioned by the window and sat. What do you want to know? Everything, Elena thought. Who you are, why you have armed guards, what the hell I've walked into. But she started smaller. The estate? How long have you lived here? My family built it 20 years ago. I've lived here most of my adult life. And your sister? Valentina manages operations. She's protective. Of you or the property? Both. Elena shifted in her chair, trying to find a position where her ribs didn't scream. What kind of operations? Various business interests. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Fair enough. Elena changed tactics. The storm. Has it cleared? This morning, roads are still bad but passable. So I can leave. Luca met her eyes. Marcus says you need at least another week of monitored rest. The hematoma could worsen with stress or exertion. Traveling now would be inadvisable. And if I want to risk it, then you're free to go. But there's nowhere for you to go, is there, Elena? The use of her first name caught her off guard. So did the accuracy of his statement. Elena looked away, back to the snow-covered gardens. No, there isn't. What happened before the accident? She shouldn't tell him. Shouldn't share personal information with a stranger who kept her phone confiscated and had guards with guns patrolling his property. But the words came anyway, maybe because she'd been alone with them for days and they needed somewhere to go. My boyfriend cheated on me for 6 months. I found out the same night I told him I was pregnant. He kicked me out. I packed my things, started driving, and crashed. Elena's laugh was bitter. Shortest disaster story ever told. The father. He doesn't want the child? He wanted me to handle it, like it's a problem that can be fixed with a clinic visit and a Visa card. Luca was quiet for a moment. And you, what do you want? Nobody had asked her that. Not Ryan, not her mother in the strained phone conversation she'd had before the crash, not even herself in the spiral of panic and decision-making. What did she want? To keep my baby alive, Elena said. Everything else, I'll figure it out. That's not nothing. It's not enough either. I have $800, no job lined up that will hire someone pregnant, no home, no support system. I'm supposed to be on bed rest, but I need to work. I need to find a place to live. I need to... She stopped, the impossibility of it all crashing over her again. I need to figure out how to do the impossible. Impossible is subjective. Easy to say when you have an estate and armed guards and a private doctor. Luca smiled slightly. Fair point. He stood. Rest, Elena. You have time to figure things out. Do I? But he was already at the door. He paused, hand on the knob. Valentina will check on you tomorrow. She's thorough. Try not to take it personally. Then he was gone, leaving Elena with more questions than answers and the uncomfortable realization that she'd just shared her entire sob story with a man she knew nothing about. Valentina's check-in the next morning was exactly as uncomfortable as promised. She arrived with coffee, real coffee, not the decaf Marcus had been forcing on Elena, and a legal pad full of notes. You're being discharged from medical supervision today, Valentina announced, settling into the chair Luca had occupied yesterday. Marcus says you're stable enough to move around normally with restrictions. No heavy lifting, no stress, follow-up ultrasound in a week. Great. So I can leave. You can. Should you? Valentina sipped her coffee, watching Elena over the rim. Let me paint you a picture, Miss Carter. You leave here with nowhere to go. You find a motel. Cheap, because your funds are limited. You look for work while obviously pregnant. Even if you land something, it won't pay enough for rent, utilities, medical care, and food. The hematoma complicates things. You need monitoring. Can't afford regular doctor visits without insurance. Stress makes it worse. Stress is inevitable when you're broke and homeless. Each word landed like a punch. What's your point? My point is that leaving right now is stupid. Understandable, given you don't know us and have every reason to be suspicious, but stupid nonetheless. So, what are you suggesting? Valentina set down her coffee cup with precise care. Stay. 2 weeks. Consider it a recovery period. Marcus can monitor you properly. You'll have time to make actual plans instead of panic decisions. And when you leave, you'll be in better shape, literally and figuratively, to handle what comes next. Why would you do that? I wouldn't. But Luca has decided you're his responsibility now, and arguing with him when he's made up his mind is exhausting. Valentina's expression was dry. Consider this enlightened self-interest. 2 weeks? You recover fully, we ensure you're not a threat, everyone wins. I'm not a threat. So you keep saying, prove it. Elena wanted to argue, to throw the offer back in Valentina's perfectly composed face and storm out. But she thought about motels with bedbugs, about job applications that would go nowhere, about the constant anxiety of not knowing where her next meal would come from or if she could afford prenatal vitamins. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. 2 weeks, Elena said. Then I'm gone. Excellent. I'll have your things moved to one of the guest suites. More comfortable than this medical room. And Elena? Valentina stood, smoothing her already perfect suit. Stay out of the West Wing. That's private. The guest suite was 3 times the size of the apartment she'd shared with Ryan. Bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Windows that overlooked the gardens. Art on the walls that looked expensive and probably was. A closet already stocked with clothes in her size. How Valentina had managed that, Elena didn't want to know. She stood in the middle of it all, feeling completely out of place. A knock at the door. Elena opened it to find a young woman, maybe 25, holding a tray. Lunch, the woman said with a slight accent, Eastern European maybe. I'm Anya. I help with the household. If you need anything, you press this. She indicated a small panel by the door. Someone will come. Thank you. Anya set the tray on the sitting room table and hesitated. It's good you're staying. Mr. Moretti, he doesn't bring people here. Must mean he trusts you. Before Elena could respond to that confusing statement, Anya was gone. The lunch was better than hospital food. Actual seasoning, fresh bread, fruit that tasted like it hadn't been sitting in a warehouse for weeks. Elena ate mechanically, her mind turning over the situation. 2 weeks. She'd agreed to 2 weeks in a place that felt less like a home and more like a fortress, with people who had secrets in every shadow and guns in every corner, because the alternative was being broke and alone and desperate. She hated that they were right, hated that she needed this. But she ate the good food and took a bath in the massive tub and slept in sheets with a thread count she couldn't even estimate because she wasn't stupid enough to reject comfort when it was offered. Even if it came with armed guards and locked doors and a family that was clearly hiding something dark. The question was whether she'd figure out what that something was before her 2 weeks were up, or whether she even wanted to know. Elena discovered the library on her 3rd day in the guest suite. She'd been wandering the allowed sections of the estate, mainly the east wing and portions of the main floor, trying to burn off restless energy without aggravating her ribs. Most doors were locked, or led to rooms clearly off limits based on the guards posted nearby. But one door, tucked between a sitting room and what looked like a formal dining hall, opened easily. The smell hit her first. Old books, leather, wood polish. The kind of smell that belonged in universities and antique shops, not someone's private home. The library stretched 2 stories high, floor-to-ceiling shelves connected by a rolling ladder. Windows along one wall let in pale winter light that caught dust motes drifting through the air. Elena stepped inside and immediately felt like she was trespassing. You read Italian? She spun. Luca was standing in a corner she hadn't noticed, holding a book with a dark cover. He'd appeared without sound, and Elena's heart was hammering from the surprise. Jesus, you could announce yourself. I was here first. He set the book down on a massive desk that dominated the center of the room. This is technically the West Wing. You're not supposed to be here. The door was unlocked. That doesn't mean it was an invitation. Elena backed toward the doorway. Sorry, I'll go. I didn't say leave. Luca moved around the desk, studying her. I asked if you read Italian. Most of these are in Italian or Latin, some English, but not many. No, I barely passed Spanish in college. Pity. There's a first edition Dante on the 3rd shelf that's worth seeing even if you can't read it. He gestured to a chair near the windows. Sit. You look like you're about to bolt. Your sister said to stay out of the West Wing. Valentina says a lot of things. Sit. Elena sat, mostly because her ribs were starting to ache from all the walking. Luca remained standing, which put him at an advantage she didn't like. But complaining seemed petty. What were you reading? She asked, nodding at the book he'd set down. Machiavelli, The Prince. Required reading in my family. Figures. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. You think we're Machiavellian? I think you have armed guards, a private doctor, and your sister treats security like a religion. Either you're paranoid or there's a reason to be paranoid. Either way, yeah, Machiavellian fits. Luca did smile then, brief but genuine. You're more observant than Valentina gives you credit for. She thinks I'm an idiot. She thinks you're a civilian who stumbled into something complicated. There's a difference. Elena leaned back in the chair, studying him. What did I stumble into, Luca? Nothing that concerns you. Everything here concerns me. I'm living in your house, eating your food under surveillance by people with guns. You don't get to tell me it doesn't concern me. He was quiet for a long moment, and Elena thought he might actually answer. Instead, he changed the subject entirely. Marcus says your follow-up ultrasound is tomorrow. How are you feeling? Fine. Tired. The bleeding stopped completely 2 days ago. That's good. Is it? Or does that mean I'm healthy enough to kick out? Luca crossed to the windows, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. You agreed to 2 weeks. We're honoring that. Unless you want to leave early. Do I have a choice? Everyone has choices, Elena. The question is whether you're willing to live with the consequences. There was weight in those words, layers Elena couldn't quite parse. She stood, ignoring the twinge in her ribs. What kind of business are you in? Import and export. That's bullshit. He turned from the window, expression unreadable. Careful. Or what? You'll have one of your guards escort me out? Fine, do it. Because I'm tired of the non-answers and the secrets and pretending this is all normal. Elena moved closer, anger overriding caution. You want me to stay 2 weeks? Then give me something real. One honest answer. What are you involved in that requires this level of security? Luca's eyes narrowed. For a second, Elena thought she'd pushed too far. Then he spoke, voice low and controlled. My family has interests that attract attention. Some of that attention is hostile. The security is necessary. That's all you need to know. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. And Elena? He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Stop pushing. You're here as a guest, recovering from an accident. That's the extent of our arrangement. Don't make me regret helping you. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Elena held his gaze, refusing to back down even as every instinct screamed at her to retreat. Fine. But when my 2 weeks are up, I'm gone. And I don't care how bad the roads are or what Marcus says about bed rest. I'll take my chances out there over staying somewhere I'm treated like a prisoner. She left before he could respond, her hands shaking with adrenaline and fury she couldn't quite name. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the library confrontation. Luca's expression when she'd challenged him, the way he'd stepped close, using his size to intimidate, the careful non-answers that revealed nothing and everything at once. Import and export. Right. And she was the Easter Bunny. Around 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep and went to the window. The estate grounds were lit by strategic floodlights that turned the snow blue-white. She could see guards making rounds, their breath visible in the cold air. One of them stopped, speaking into a radio, then moved toward the main gate. A car was approaching. Black SUV, similar to the one Luca had used to rescue her. It pulled through the gate and parked near a side entrance Elena hadn't noticed before. 3 men got out, all wearing dark suits despite the hour. One was bleeding. She could see the dark stain on his shirt even from this distance. They went inside quickly. Minutes later, lights came on in what Elena guessed was the medical wing. Marcus appeared, moving fast, followed by Luca and Valentina. Whatever import and export business the Morettis ran, it apparently involved injuries that required off-the-books medical care at 2 a.m. Elena backed away from the window, her heart racing. She should go back to bed, pretend she hadn't seen anything, keep her head down and count the days until she could leave. Instead, she grabbed her robe and slipped into the hallway. The estate was different at night, quieter, but with an undercurrent of tension that made the hair on Elena's neck stand up. She moved carefully, avoiding the main staircases where guards were likely posted. There had to be a back way down, servants' stairs or something. She found them tucked behind a door she'd assumed was a closet. Narrow, wooden, definitely not meant for guests. Elena descended slowly, her ribs protesting with each step. At the bottom was another door, slightly ajar. Voices filtered through. Complete disaster. I told you the Baldini meeting was a setup. Valentina, her voice sharp with anger. We didn't have a choice. Luca, calmer but strained. If we hadn't shown up, it would have been seen as weakness. And showing up got 3 of our men shot, one critically. Was that a better show of strength? Marco will survive. Marcus is good. That's not the point. Elena eased closer to the door, trying to see through the gap. She could make out part of the room, looked like an office, maps on one wall, a large desk covered in papers. Luca was pacing, visible in profile. Valentina stood with her arms crossed, fury radiating from every line of her body. The Baldinis are escalating, Luca said. This attack was a message. They want war. Then we give them war. Hit them hard, take out their operations in Billings and Great Falls, send a clear signal and start a bloodbath that draws federal attention? We're not doing that. So what? We just absorb the hits? Let them think we're weak? We respond strategically, cut off their supply lines, target their finances, make them hurt without giving the FBI a reason to start investigating. Elena's hand slipped on the doorframe. The slight sound was enough. Luca's head snapped toward the door. Someone's there. Shit. Elena turned to flee, but her ribs chose that moment to seize up. She gasped, stumbling, and then the door was yanked fully open and Luca was staring down at her with an expression that made her blood run cold. Elena, I couldn't sleep. I was just... How much did you hear? Nothing. I didn't hear anything. Valentina appeared behind Luca, her face a mask of controlled rage. I told you she was a risk. I told you. Val, get her out of here, now. I don't care where, but she can't stay. Not after this. Luca grabbed Elena's arm. Not rough, but firm enough to make it clear this wasn't a request. He pulled her into the office and shut the door. Sit. Elena sat. She didn't have much choice. Valentina was already on her phone, typing rapidly. I'm calling cleanup. We move her tonight. There's a motel outside Bozeman. We drop her there with enough cash to... We're not doing that. Luca, she heard it. She heard us discussing business. That's all. Nothing specific, nothing actionable. Luca turned to Elena, his expression hard. Did you hear anything specific? Names, locations, plans? Elena's mind raced. She had heard names. Baldini. The mention of Billings and Great Falls. But admitting that felt like signing her own death warrant. I heard you arguing about a meeting that went wrong. That's it. I swear. Why were you sneaking around at 2 a.m? I saw the car arrive, the man who was bleeding. I was curious. Curious? Valentina's laugh was bitter. You hear that, Luca? She was curious. That's wonderful. That's exactly the kind of discretion we need in someone who... Val, enough. Luca's voice cut through his sister's rant like a blade. Go check on Marco. I'll handle this. Handle it how? That's not your concern right now. Go. For a moment, Elena thought Valentina would refuse, but she just shot Elena a look that promised future consequences and left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Luca sat on the edge of the desk, studying Elena with an intensity that made her want to disappear. You understand the position you've put me in. I didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter. You heard things you shouldn't have. That creates a problem. Elena's mouth went dry. What kind of problem? The kind where Valentina wants you gone immediately, and I have to decide if that's the smart move or the paranoid one. He rubbed his face, suddenly looking tired. You seem like a decent person, Elena. Wrong place, wrong time, bad luck. I don't want to make your situation worse, but I also can't have information about my family's business walking around uncontrolled. I won't say anything to anyone. I don't even know what I heard. You heard enough to know we're not running a legitimate import business. There it was, the acknowledgement she'd been pushing for in the library, now delivered as a threat. What do you want from me? Elena asked quietly. Luca was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured, careful. You're 2 weeks. You stay, you recover, and you keep your mouth shut about everything you see and hear. After that, you leave. You start your new life, and you forget the Moretti family exists. We give you resources to help with that. Money, references, whatever you need to get settled somewhere. Clean break, no looking back. And if I refuse, you won't. It wasn't a threat exactly, more a statement of fact which somehow made it worse. Elena thought about the men with guns, about Marco bleeding in the medical wing, about the careful way Luca and Valentina had discussed responding strategically to people who'd attacked them. These weren't people you refused. Okay, she said. 2 weeks? Then I'm gone. Good. Luca stood. One of the guards will escort you back to your room. You don't leave it until morning. Understood? Understood. He opened the door and gestured to someone Elena couldn't see. A guard appeared, not one she recognized, and Luca spoke to him in Italian. The guard nodded and indicated Elena should follow. She did, walking back through the silent estate with her mind spinning. What had she gotten herself into? What kind of family needed this level of security, had meetings that ended in gunfire, discussed federal investigations like they were a real threat? The guard deposited her at her suite and positioned himself outside the door, not watching her exactly, just making sure she stayed put. Elena locked herself inside and sat on the bed, shaking. She needed to leave. Now. Tonight. Grab what little she had and run. But where would she go? She had no phone, no car, no money of her own. The roads were dangerous, the night was freezing, and she was pregnant with a condition that could turn fatal with stress or exertion. She was trapped, not by locked doors or armed guards, but by circumstance and her own desperation. And the worst part? She wasn't even sure Luca was the villain in this scenario. He'd saved her life, given her shelter, provided medical care. The fact that he was involved in something criminal didn't change that he'd helped her when no one else would. Elena lay down, pulled the expensive covers over her head, and tried not to think about what morning would bring. Morning brought Valentina, tight-lipped and furious, with a non-disclosure agreement. "Sign it," she said, slapping the papers down on the sitting room table. "Before you leave this estate, you sign a legally binding NDA stating you will not discuss anything you've seen, heard, or experienced here. Violation results in legal action and financial penalties you cannot afford." Elena skimmed the document. It was thorough, terrifyingly thorough. "This says you can sue me for up to $5 million if I breach. That's correct?" "I don't have $5 million. "Then I suggest you don't breach." Valentina thrust a pen at her. "Sign." Elena signed. What choice did she have? Valentina took the papers without a word and left. 30 seconds later, Luca appeared, like they'd coordinated the tag team intimidation. "That was necessary," he said. "Was it? Or is your sister just vengeful?" "Both." He moved to the window, hands in his pockets. "I'm sorry about last night. You shouldn't have seen any of that." "But I did." "Yes, and now we both have to live with the consequences." He turned to face her. "I meant what I said. 2 weeks, resources to help you start over, then we part ways. I don't go back on my word, Elena." "Why are you helping me?" "Really?" The question seemed to surprise him. "Does there have to be a reason?" "Everyone has reasons." Luca smiled slightly. "Fair. Let's say I don't like seeing people get hurt when I can prevent it. That enough for you?" It wasn't, but Elena nodded anyway. "What happens now?" "Now you stay out of trouble. Rest, recover, and in 12 days you walk out of here with enough money to get back on your feet." He headed for the door, then paused. "And Elena? No more midnight wandering. The estate isn't safe at night, even for guests. Understand?" "I understand." He left. Elena stood by the window watching the guards patrol the grounds and wondered what she'd agreed to. The next week passed in a strange limbo. Elena kept to her suite mostly, venturing out only for meals and the follow-up ultrasound that Marcus performed with his usual clinical efficiency. The baby was fine. The hematoma was shrinking. Her ribs were healing. Physically, she was recovering. Mentally, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for someone to push. She didn't see Luca again until day 10. He appeared at dinner, the formal kind, served in the dining room Elena had been avoiding because eating alone in a room designed for 20 felt depressing. But Anya had insisted. "Mr. Moretti requested your presence." So Elena put on one of the nicer dresses from the mysteriously stocked closet and went down. Luca was already there, along with Valentina and two men Elena didn't recognize. Everyone went silent when she entered. "Elena!" Luca stood. "Join us." She sat at the far end of the table feeling completely out of place. The dinner was Italian, multiple courses, wine she wasn't allowed to drink because of the pregnancy, conversation in a mix of English and Italian that seemed designed to exclude her. The two unfamiliar men kept glancing at her, not hostile, exactly, but assessing, like she was a problem they were trying to solve. Finally, Valentina addressed her directly. "How much longer until you're cleared to travel?" "Marcus said I could leave any time. The hematoma's resolved." "Excellent. We'll arrange transportation for you on Friday." Friday. 2 days from now. 2 days until she'd be dumped somewhere with money she didn't earn and a future she couldn't imagine. "Where am I going?" Elena asked. Valentina and Luca exchanged a look. "That's your decision," Luca said. "But we'd suggest somewhere away from Montana. Fresh start, new city. We can help with that." "Help how?" One of the unfamiliar men spoke up, his accent thick. "Mr. Moretti is prepared to provide first and last month's rent on an apartment, relocation expenses, and a stipend to cover your costs until you find employment. Very generous." Very suspicious, Elena thought. Why would you do that? "Consider it an investment in your continued discretion," Valentina said coolly. "You mean a bribe. Call it what you want. The offer stands." Elena looked at Luca. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "And if I refuse?" "Then you leave with nothing," Valentina said. "Your choice." It wasn't really a choice. Elena knew that. They all knew that. "I'll think about it," she said. Dinner continued in strained silence. Elena picked at her food, her appetite gone. When dessert was served, something elaborate with cream and berries, she excused herself and fled back to her suite. She was packing her meager belongings when the knock came. Luca, she assumed. Or Valentina, ready to pressure her into accepting their blood money. Instead, it was Anya. And she looked terrified. "Miss Elena, you need to come. Now. Quickly." "What's wrong?" "Your friend. They took your friend." Elena's blood went cold. "What friend? I don't have anyone." "From your phone. They found messages, someone named Natalie." Anya was pulling her toward the door. "The Baldinis took her. They're using her to get to Mr. Moretti. Please. You have to come." Elena let herself be dragged down the hallway, her mind refusing to process what she was hearing. Natalie. Her best friend Natalie, who was supposed to be in Seattle, who had nothing to do with any of this. They burst into the office where Elena had eavesdropped. Luca was there, along with Valentina and half a dozen men armed with weapons that were no longer being concealed. On the desk was Elena's phone, powered on, open to her text messages. Luca looked up, his expression grim. "When was the last time you spoke to Natalie Torres?" "Before the accident. She was in Seattle for work. Why? What happened?" "She came back early. Started looking for you when you didn't respond to her messages. Made calls, filed a missing person report, generally drew attention." Valentina's voice was harsh. "The Baldinis have people in the Billings PD. They connected the dots, figured out you were here, and grabbed her this afternoon." "Oh no, oh no, no, no!" Elena's legs gave out. Someone caught her, one of the armed men, and lowered her into a chair. "This is my fault. I should have called her. I should have told her I was okay." "Yes, you should have," Valentina snapped. "But what's done is done. Now we have to deal with it." Luca was staring at his phone. "They sent proof of life 20 minutes ago, and demands." He turned the phone toward Elena. The photo showed Natalie, bright, energetic Natalie, who made Elena laugh even on her worst days, tied to a chair, bruised, terrified. "What do they want?" Elena's voice broke. "A trade," Luca said quietly. "You for her." The room went silent. Everyone was looking at Elena now, and she understood with perfect clarity this was her fault, and she was the only one who could fix it. "Then trade me," she said. "No." Luca's voice was flat, absolute. "They took her because of me. Because I was here, because she was looking for me. I can't let her die for that." "You're not trained. You'd be a liability. We're handling this differently." "How?" Luca's smile was cold, dangerous. "We're getting your friend back. And then we're ending this. Elena watched Luca's expression harden into something she hadn't seen before. Not anger, exactly. Something colder, more calculating. The kind of look that explained why men with guns deferred to him without question. "Get Marco and the others," he said to one of the armed men. "Full gear. We move in 30 minutes. "Luca, wait." Valentina stepped forward. "We don't know where they're holding her. The Baldinis could have her anywhere. The warehouse district, one of their properties outside the city. Hell, they could have driven her to Idaho for all we know." Then we find out. Luca was already moving, pulling up something on his phone. They want to trade. That means they'll send a location. We use that. It's a trap. Obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. That's why we're not walking into it blind. He looked at Valentina. "Get the surveillance team on every known Baldini property. I want eyes everywhere. If they move her, I want to know before the car stops." Valentina nodded and started making calls. Rapid Italian that Elena couldn't follow. The armed men were filing out, presumably to prepare for whatever Luca had planned. Within seconds, the office had transformed from a quiet meeting space into something resembling a military command center. Elena stood frozen in the middle of it all, still trying to process. Natalie was in danger because of her, because she'd crashed her car near the wrong estate, because she'd been too traumatized to think about calling her best friend, because she'd stumbled into a world where people got kidnapped as leverage in some criminal war she didn't understand. "This is my fault," she said again, louder this time. Luca glanced at her. "Blame doesn't help your friend right now." "Then let me do something. Let me help." "You've done enough." The words hit like a slap. Elena felt her face flush. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. You've been here 10 days and managed to eavesdrop on private conversations, violate security protocols, and get your friend kidnapped. The helpful thing you can do now is stay out of the way." Luca turned back to his phone, dismissing her. Something snapped in Elena. Maybe it was the stress of the past 2 weeks, or the pregnancy hormones, or the sheer unfairness of being treated like a burden when she never asked to be rescued in the first place. Whatever it was, it burned through her fear and caution. "Don't you dare," she said, voice shaking. "Don't you dare act like I'm some incompetent child who can't handle reality. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't ask to crash near your estate. I didn't ask for your help. And I sure as hell didn't ask to be kept in the dark about what kind of dangerous bullshit you people are involved in. You want to blame someone? Blame yourself for bringing me here instead of taking me to a hospital, like a normal person." The room went quiet. Even Valentina stopped talking, phone still pressed to her ear, staring at Elena like she'd grown a second head. Luca set his phone down slowly. "Finished?" "No, you rescued me, fine, I'm grateful. But then you kept me here, fed me half-truths, and now my best friend is paying the price for your family's war. So don't tell me I've done enough. Tell me how to fix this." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Luca did something Elena didn't expect. He laughed, short, sharp, but genuine. "You've got spine," he said. "I'll give you that. I've got a friend who's terrified and hurt because of me. Spine's got nothing to do with it." Luca studied her, and Elena could almost see him recalculating, making a decision. "Fine. You want to help? Tell me everything you know about Natalie. Where she works, where she lives, who she knows, what car she drives, where she goes when she's stressed. Everything." Elena's mind raced. "She works for a tech company in Seattle, software development. She's back early. You said the Baldinis grabbed her in Billings?" "At her hotel. The Riverside Inn, downtown. She checked in yesterday afternoon, started making calls about you around 6 p.m. Security footage shows 3 men taking her from the parking lot around 11. "What was she doing in Billings? Her family's in Washington." Valentina cut in, phone lowered now. "Looking for you. She filed the missing person report when your mother said you weren't with her and Ryan claimed you'd left town. She drove from Seattle to check your apartment, found it cleared out, and started asking questions." The guilt threatened to choke Elena. Natalie had driven 14 hours because she was worried, had asked questions in a city where apparently asking the wrong questions got you kidnapped. "She drives a blue Honda CR-V, Elena said, forcing herself to focus. "She's got a small tattoo on her left wrist, a semicolon. When she's stressed, she goes for runs or she goes to bookstores. She's got a sister in Portland, parents in Tacoma. She's been my best friend since college, and she doesn't deserve this." Nobody deserves this, Luca said. But if the Baldinis think they can use her to hurt me, they're wrong. He looked at one of the men who'd re-entered the room, this one older, graying at the temples. What have we got? The man consulted a tablet. 3 properties flagged. The old meatpacking plant on Industrial Avenue. Our people saw unusual activity there around midnight. A house in the suburbs, registered to a Baldini shell company. And a warehouse near the airport that's been dark for months, but just had its utilities turned back on. The plant's too exposed, Valentina said immediately. Too many cameras, too much civilian traffic, even at night. They'd avoid it. The airport warehouse makes sense, Luca mused. Isolated, easy to monitor approaches, quick escape routes if needed. Or it's the obvious choice, which makes it the wrong choice if they're smart. Valentina was pacing now, thinking out loud. The house could work. Residential area, neighbors who don't ask questions, basement for holding someone. We don't have time to check all 3. Luca's jaw tightened. We need to narrow it down. Elena's phone buzzed on the desk. Everyone's attention snapped to it. Luca picked it up. Text from an unknown number, location pin, and a message. He read it aloud. Tomorrow, noon, abandoned grain silos off Route 89. You for the girl. Come alone, or she dies. Route 89, Elena repeated. Her stomach dropped. That's where I crashed. Not a coincidence, Valentina said. They know we found you there. They're being symbolic, or they're trying to rattle us. Either way, it's amateur. Amateur doesn't mean not dangerous. Luca forwarded the location to his own phone. Grain silos, I know that spot. 3 buildings, lots of cover, multiple exit points. Good place for an ambush. So we don't take the bait, Valentina said. We hit them at one of the properties before tomorrow. Extract Natalie before the trade ever happens. And if we guess wrong, if she's not at any of those 3 locations? Luca shook his head. No. We need confirmation. Elena watched them debate, her mind spinning. Tomorrow at noon. That gave them less than 12 hours to find Natalie before the Baldinis expected a trade that would never happen. 12 hours to search 3 properties, or make a choice that could get Natalie killed if they were wrong. What if you make them think you're agreeing? Elena said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. What if you respond, say you'll make the trade, keep them focused on tomorrow? That buys time to search the properties tonight without them moving her. Valentina's eyes narrowed. That could work. Keep them confident, off guard. Or it tips them off that we're stalling, Luca countered. They'll increase security, maybe move her anyway as a precaution. But they already have her, Elena pointed out. What's the worst that happens? You say yes, they believe you, and you get the night to find her. You say nothing, they assume you're planning something anyway and lock down tighter. Luca considered this. Finally, he typed something on Elena's phone and showed it to Valentina. How's this? I'll be there. Let me talk to her first. Proof she's alive. It's reasonable enough they might go for it, Valentina agreed. And if they send video or audio, we might get background details that help us locate her. Luca hit send. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. The response came through. A video file, 20 seconds long. Luca played it. Natalie appeared on screen and Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Her friend looked worse than the photo. New bruises, dried blood from a split lip, duct tape securing her to what looked like a metal chair. Behind her was concrete wall, bare except for water stains. No windows visible. Elena? Natalie's voice was hoarse. I don't know if you're seeing this, but don't do anything stupid. These guys are serious. I'm okay. I can handle this. Just don't. Someone off camera spoke in Italian. Natalie flinched. They say noon tomorrow, or I don't leave here. Her eyes were directly on the camera now, and Elena could see the terror beneath the forced calm. I'm sorry I came looking for you. I should have just... The video cut off. Elena was shaking. Play it again. Luca did. Elena watched, forcing herself to look past Natalie's injuries, past her fear, background details. There had to be something. The wall, she said, those water stains. That's not recent water damage. That's old, months or years old. Basement, maybe, one of the men suggested, or ground floor of an abandoned building. The echo, Valentina said. When the man speaks, there's an echo. Big space, high ceilings, Warehouse, Luca decided. The airport location. That's our best bet. He was already moving, issuing orders in rapid Italian. The room emptied fast, men heading out to gear up or get vehicles ready. Valentina stayed behind, typing furiously on her tablet. What happens now? Elena asked. Now you go back to your suite and you wait, Valentina said without looking up. We handle this. Like hell I do. Valentina's head snapped up. Excuse me? I'm not sitting in a room while you go rescue my friend. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. She's there because of me. I'm not letting her face this alone. You're pregnant, untrained, and a liability. You'll get yourself killed and probably take some of my people with you. Valentina's voice was ice. You're staying here. That's final. Luca appeared in the doorway. She comes. Both women stared at him. What? Valentina looked like he'd suggested they bring a marching band. She comes with us. In one of the vehicles with a guard. She stays in the car, well back from the action, but she comes. Luca looked at Elena. Your friend sees you after we extract her, knows you tried to help. That matters. Luca, this is insane. It's done, Val. Get her a vest and assign someone to watch her. We leave in 10 minutes. He was gone before Valentina could argue further. His sister turned to Elena with an expression that could have melted steel. If you do anything stupid, Valentina said quietly, if you compromise this operation in any way, I will personally make sure you regret it. Clear? Crystal. Good. Come with me. 5 minutes later, Elena was wearing a bulletproof vest that was too big and smelled like gun oil, sitting in the back of an SUV with a stone-faced guard named Pietro, who'd been told to keep her safe and, apparently, to shoot her if she tried to leave the vehicle. Or that's what Elena assumed from the way Valentina had spoken to him in Italian while gesturing at Elena like she was a bomb that might go off. 3 vehicles left the estate in convoy. Black SUVs with tinted windows, moving fast but not recklessly through the empty pre-dawn streets. Elena watched Billings pass by, suburbs giving way to industrial zones, the sky beginning to lighten with the threat of sunrise. They passed the spot where she'd crashed. Elena recognized the curve in the road, the trees where her Civic had disappeared into the ditch. Less than 2 weeks ago, she'd thought she was dying there. Now she was riding in a convoy of armed criminals about to raid a warehouse. Her life had gotten very weird, very fast. The warehouse district appeared, rows of corrugated metal buildings, most dark and abandoned. The convoy slowed, then split up. 2 vehicles continued forward while Elena's SUV pulled into the lot of a defunct factory across the street. Pietro handed her an earpiece. You listen only. You do not speak. Understand? Elena nodded and fit the earpiece in. Immediately she could hear voices, mostly Italian but some English mixed in. Team 1 in position, north entrance. Team 2 covering the east side, no movement visible. Thermal shows at least 6 heat signatures inside, main floor concentrated in the northwest corner. Luca's voice cut through the chatter. Remember, civilian hostage, watch your fire. We go in quiet, extract quickly, no heroes. Elena watched through the SUV's windshield as dark figures moved through the shadows. The warehouse Luca's people had identified sat squat and dark, loading bay doors closed, no lights visible. But thermal imaging didn't lie, people were inside. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. The north entrance door blew inward with a controlled explosion that was quieter than Elena expected, more of a thump than a bang. Immediately, figures poured through. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that made Elena flinch even from across the street. Contact! 2 down, northeast corner, movement on the catwalk. The radio dissolved into controlled chaos. Elena gripped the door handle, every instinct screaming at her to do something, help somehow, but Pietro's hand was on her shoulder, holding her in place. You stay, he said firmly. Through the earpiece she heard Luca's voice, calm despite the gunfire. Valentina, 2nd floor, I need you clearing rooms. Marco, with me, we're going for the hostage. More gunfire. Someone screamed, impossible to tell who or why through the audio. Elena counted seconds, her nails digging into her palms. Then, hostage located, she's alive, we're coming out, cover the exits. An explosion, much louder than the breach charge. The warehouse's west wall blew outward in a spray of concrete and flame. Elena felt the percussion even inside the SUV, saw Pietro swear and reach for his radio. "What was that?" someone yelled through the comms. "Baldini's had backup. RPG from the adjacent building. Get Moretti out of there. The structure's compromised." Elena couldn't see the north entrance from her position, couldn't see if anyone was emerging. The warehouse was burning now, flames licking up through the hole in the wall. Smoke billowed into the pre-dawn sky. "Luca, do you copy?" Static. "Luca?" More static, then a cough. "Copy. We're clear. Hostage is secure. We're moving to extraction point Bravo." Relief flooded through Elena. They had Natalie. They were getting out. Then the shooting started again, closer this time. Pietro swore and put the SUV in reverse, backing deeper into the factory lot. Through the windshield, Elena saw muzzle flashes from the building next to the warehouse. The Baldini backup Luca's team hadn't anticipated. "We've got 4, maybe 5 shooters in the adjacent structure. Suppressing fire. Get our people to the vehicles. Man down. Need medical." Elena watched figures running from the burning warehouse toward the waiting SUVs. Some were carrying others. It was impossible to tell in the smoke and darkness who was who, whether Natalie was among them, whether everyone was making it out. One of the SUVs peeled out, heading away from the fight. A second followed. The shooting was intensifying, concentrated now on Luca's position as he and his remaining people tried to retreat. "Pietro." Elena turned to the guard. "We need to help them." "No, Mr. Moretti said you stay here. You stay safe." "They're pinned down." "And we have our orders." Elena looked back at the chaos. Through the smoke, she could see Luca and maybe 3 others behind a concrete barrier, returning fire at the adjacent building. They were outgunned, exposed, and the only vehicles left were too far away to reach safely. She made a decision that was either brave or incredibly stupid. Elena grabbed the door handle and yanked. Pietro tried to stop her, but she was already moving, slipping out of the SUV while he was still reaching for her. She ran, not toward the fight, but toward one of the abandoned vehicles that had been left when people went inside. An older SUV, keys probably still in it, because why would you expect to need to lock your car during a military raid? "Miss Carter!" Pietro was out of the vehicle, following her, but Elena was faster. She yanked open the driver's side door of the abandoned SUV, keys in the ignition. Thank God for criminal carelessness. She started the engine, threw it in drive, and accelerated toward Luca's position. Pietro was yelling something behind her, probably cursing her in Italian, but Elena focused on the road, on the concrete barrier where Luca and his people were trapped. She pulled up beside the barrier, passenger side, facing the shooters to give Luca's team cover. "Get in!" Luca's head whipped around. His expression cycled through shock, fury, and resignation in about 2 seconds. "You've got to be kidding me. Get in or stay pinned. Your choice." More gunfire. The SUV's windows spiderwebbed where bullets hit. Bulletproof glass, Elena realized. These weren't normal vehicles. Luca made his decision. "Move! Everyone in now!" His 3 remaining people piled into the SUV, one of them bleeding from the shoulder, another limping badly. Luca came last, diving into the passenger seat as Elena hit the gas. "Drive toward the factory, Pietro's position," Luca ordered, breathing hard. "And for the record, this was incredibly stupid." "You're welcome." They made it to Pietro's vehicle without getting shot. The guard looked equal parts relieved and furious. Luca jumped out and immediately started coordinating the retreat, all vehicles pulling back, regrouping at a secondary location. The warehouse was fully engulfed now, flames visible for miles. Sirens were starting in the distance. "We need to move." Valentina's voice crackled through the radio. She was in one of the vehicles that had already left. "Fire department's 3 minutes out, PD right behind them." "Copy." Everyone pull back to the rally point. Elena expected Luca to order her back into Pietro's vehicle. Instead, he got back into the SUV she'd commandeered, this time in the driver's seat. "Move over. I'm driving." She slid into the passenger seat without argument. Luca drove like he'd done this 100 times, fast but controlled, taking streets that avoided the main routes where police would be converging. The other vehicles scattered in different directions, a coordinated dispersal that made it impossible to follow them all. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Elena found her voice. "Is Natalie okay?" She's with Valentina. Bruised, scared, but alive. Marcus will check her over when we get back to the estate. Thank you. Luca didn't respond for a moment. Then, that was the stupidest thing you could have done back there. But it worked. This time. Next time you might not be so lucky. There's not going to be a next time. This is your world, not mine. I'm done after today. He glanced at her. Are you? Elena didn't know how to answer that. Was she done? Could she just walk away after everything she'd seen, after participating, however marginally, in a raid that had left a warehouse burning and people dead or injured? They pulled into the estate through a side gate Elena hadn't known existed. The place was lit up like a hospital, people rushing around, vehicles being parked in what looked like an underground garage. Luca handed the SUV off to someone and led Elena inside through an entrance that bypassed the main house entirely. They emerged into what looked like a medical bay, larger than the room where Marcus had initially treated Elena, with multiple beds and serious equipment. And there, in one of the beds, was Natalie. Oh my God! Elena rushed forward, then stopped herself. Natalie was connected to an IV, Marcus working on cleaning the cuts on her face. She looked exhausted, broken, nothing like the vibrant friend Elena knew. Natalie's eyes opened, focused on Elena. You're okay. Me? You're the one who was kidnapped. Because I was looking for you, you idiot. You disappeared, nobody knew where you were, and your asshole ex was being super shady about it. Natalie tried to sit up, winced. What the hell have you been doing for 2 weeks? It's complicated. No shit. Natalie looked past Elena to where Luca stood. Are those bullet holes in your shirt? Luca glanced down. Apparently. Who are you people? Also complicated, Elena said quickly. I'll explain everything, I promise. But right now you need to rest and let Marcus patch you up. Marcus, the private doctor, in the mansion with armed guards. Natalie's laugh was slightly hysterical. I thought I was getting kidnapped by regular criminals. Turns out they were fighting with different criminals over my best friend who disappeared into some kind of crime family witness protection situation. It's not witness protection. Then what is it? Good question. Elena looked at Luca, who shrugged slightly. She's been through enough to deserve some truth. Your call, how much you tell her. He left, and Elena pulled up a chair next to Natalie's bed. Marcus finished his work and excused himself, leaving them alone. Start talking, Natalie said. So Elena did. She told her about Ryan's betrayal, the pregnancy, the crash, about Luca finding her, bringing her here, the estate with its secrets and guards. She left out some details, the late-night eavesdropping, the specific nature of Luca's business, but gave enough that Natalie could understand. So you've been living with the mafia, Natalie said when Elena finished. I don't think they're technically mafia. Crime family, organized crime, whatever you want to call it. Elena, this is insane. We need to get you out of here. I know, and we will, but not tonight. Tonight you recover. I make sure you're okay, and we figure out the next step. Natalie grabbed her hand. Promise me something. What? Promise you're not falling for this. The rescue, the protection, the dangerous man with the pretty face. Promise you're not confusing gratitude with something else. Elena thought about Luca's expression when he'd found her in the SUV, the way he'd thanked her even while calling her stupid, the careful distance he maintained like he was protecting her from something, maybe from himself. I'm not falling for anything, Elena said. I'm just trying to survive. It wasn't entirely true, and from Natalie's expression, her friend knew it. But Natalie was too exhausted to push, and Elena was too wrung out to defend herself. They sat in silence, hands clasped, while the estate bustled around them with the aftermath of violence. And Elena tried not to think about the fact that she'd driven into gunfire for people she barely knew, or what that meant about how much her world had shifted in 2 short weeks. Natalie slept through the morning, medicated and exhausted. Elena stayed beside her bed, dozing in the chair until her ribs complained loud enough that she had to move. She found coffee in the medical bay's small kitchenette. Real coffee this time, not the decaf Marcus had been forcing on her, and was halfway through her second cup when Valentina appeared. Your friend will be fine, Valentina said without preamble. Cuts, bruises, mild dehydration, nothing that won't heal. Marcus wants to keep her under observation for 24 hours, Then she's free to leave. And me? Valentina's expression was unreadable. That depends. On what? On whether you plan to do something as monumentally stupid as last night ever again. Valentina poured herself coffee, added nothing to it, and leaned against the counter. You could have been killed. Worse, you could have gotten my brother killed. I saved him. This time. But you're not trained. You're not prepared for this world, and sooner or later your luck runs out. Valentina sipped her coffee. Luca wants you to stay. Elena blinked. What? Not forever, but longer than the original 2 weeks. He thinks you deserve the choice to decide where you go next without being rushed. And he's... Valentina hesitated, which seemed unusual for her. Concerned about your safety. My safety. After last night, my safety is a concern? Last night proved the Baldinis know about you. They grabbed your friend because of her connection to you. If you leave now, go back to being a normal civilian, they might come after you anyway. Revenge, leverage, who knows? Luca wants you protected until we're sure the threat is neutralized. Elena set down her coffee cup. The threat being the Baldinis? The Baldinis are done. We destroyed their operations last night, killed their leadership. What's left will scatter or be absorbed by other families. But there's always a chance someone holds a grudge. Valentina met Elena's eyes. So you have 2 options. Leave now, take your friend, and we give you enough money to disappear somewhere the Baldinis' remnants won't find you. Or stay here, where we can guarantee your safety until things settle. And if I stay, what does that mean exactly? Valentina smiled slightly. That's between you and my brother. She left before Elena could ask what the hell that meant. Elena sat with her cooling coffee, trying to process. Stay or go? Safety or freedom? Except neither option felt entirely honest. Staying meant deeper involvement with people who just burned down a warehouse and killed multiple people, and leaving meant looking over her shoulder forever, wondering if someone with a grudge would track her down. Natalie stirred around noon. Elena was there immediately, helping her sit up, getting her water. How do you feel? Like I got kidnapped and beaten up by criminals, Natalie said dryly. But alive. So there's that. She looked around the medical bay. This is really happening. This is your life now. It's not my life. It's temporary. Is it? Natalie's gaze was sharp despite the exhaustion. Because from where I'm sitting, you just participated in a military-style rescue operation. That's pretty involved for temporary. Elena didn't have an answer for that. Natalie reached for her hand. I'm not judging. I'm worried. These people, Elena, they're dangerous. And yeah, they saved me, and I'm grateful, but that doesn't change what they are. I know what they are. Do you? Because 2 weeks ago, you were dating Ryan and working at a marketing firm. Now you're living in a compound with armed guards and going on raids. That's a hell of a transformation. I didn't choose this. No, but you're choosing to stay. That's different. Natalie squeezed her hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But be honest with yourself about why you're staying. Is it really about safety, or is it about him? Elena pulled her hand away. There is no him. Luca saved my life. That's it. Okay. I mean it. I believe you believe that. Natalie laid back against the pillows. Just promise me you'll think about what happens next. Really think, not just react. You've got a baby coming. That has to matter more than some misplaced sense of gratitude or obligation to people who live like this. The words stung because they were true. Elena had been reacting since the moment Ryan told her to handle it, running from the apartment, crashing the car, accepting Luca's help, agreeing to stay, diving into the rescue. All reactions, no planning, no real thought about consequences. She left Natalie to rest and found herself wandering the estate. It was quieter than usual, the aftermath of last night's operation leaving people tired and subdued. She passed the library, considered going in, then kept walking. Ended up in the gardens despite the cold. The snow was melting, creating muddy patches among the pristine white. Elena walked carefully, her breath visible in the afternoon air. She found a bench someone had cleared off and sat, wrapping her coat tighter. You're thinking too hard. Elena looked up. Luca stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking almost normal in jeans and a heavy sweater. No blood this time. no bullet holes. Valentina said you want me to stay longer. I suggested it as an option. You're free to leave whenever you want. He sat on the other end of the bench, maintaining distance. But yes, I think you should stay, at least until we're certain the Baldini situation is fully resolved. Your sister said they're done. Mostly, there are always loose ends. Luca watched the gardens, not looking at her. Last night was messier than it should have been. We didn't anticipate their backup. People got hurt because of that. Is that guilt I'm hearing? From you? I'm responsible for the people who work for me. When they get injured, that's on me. Elena studied his profile. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone colder, more ruthless. You rescued me, but I figured it was more about control than kindness. Bringing me here, keeping me here. I thought it was about containing a potential problem. It was. Initially. Luca finally looked at her. Then you stopped being a problem and started being a person. That complicated things. How? He was quiet for a long moment. You don't belong in this world, Elena. You're too honest, too open. You say what you think and expect people to do the same. That's dangerous here. People like Valentina, like me, we're used to everyone having an angle, everyone wanting something, but you just are. It's refreshing and terrifying in equal measure. I'm not that innocent. I drove into an active firefight last night. To save people. Not for money, not for power. Because you thought it was right. Luca shook his head. That kind of thinking gets you killed in my world. Then why do you want me to stay? The question hung between them. Luca stood, walked a few steps away, then turned back. Because I'm tired, he said finally. Tired of the violence, the constant calculation, the paranoia. My father built this organization from nothing, and I've spent 10 years maintaining it, growing it, making sure it survives. And for what? So I can die in a warehouse fight like almost happened last night? So Valentina can spend her life looking over her shoulder? You could walk away. Could I? Walk away and let everything collapse? Let the people who work for me, who depend on this organization, figure it out themselves? Let our enemies swoop in and take over territories, hurt innocent people? He laughed bitterly. There's no walking away from this life, Elena. Only forward. Then why tell me to stay? If there's no future here, what's the point? Luca moved closer. Not threatening, but intense. Because maybe you're the future. Maybe having someone here who isn't corrupted by this world yet, who can see it clearly and call bullshit when needed. Maybe that's exactly what I need to actually change things instead of just perpetuating them. Elena stood, closing the distance between them. That's a lot of weight to put on someone you've known for 2 weeks. I know. I'm pregnant with another man's baby. I'm broke, unemployed, and emotionally wrecked. I'm not some magical solution to your existential crisis. I know that too. So what are you actually asking me? Luca reached out, hesitated, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was surprisingly gentle. I'm asking you to stay, not forever, not with any promises or expectations. Just stay. Let me help you figure out what comes next. Let me protect you while you heal and plan and decide what kind of life you want. And maybe, if you're willing, help me figure out how to make this organization into something less destructive. You want me to reform the mafia. I want someone to tell me when I'm wrong. Valentina's loyal, but she agrees with me too often. Marcus is here for medical work. Everyone else is afraid to contradict me. But you? You called me out in the library. You yelled at me last night for treating you like a child. You don't defer to me, and I need that. Elena searched his face. He was serious, completely, impossibly serious about wanting her. A stranger, a pregnant civilian with no relevant experience, to stay and somehow help him transform a criminal organization. This is insane, she said. Probably. I could leave right now, take Natalie, take whatever money you're offering, and disappear. You could. But you don't think I will. Luca smiled slightly. No, I don't. He was right, and Elena hated that he was right, because somewhere in the past 2 weeks, between the car crash and the medical care and the midnight confrontations and the warehouse raid, she'd stopped seeing this as temporary. She'd started seeing possibilities, a place where she mattered, people who needed her perspective even if they didn't fully realize it yet. "I'll stay," she said. 3 months. That gives me time to figure out what I'm doing, gives you time to handle the Baldini aftermath, and gives us both an out if this doesn't work." 3 months, Luca agreed. "And Elena? Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret this when I start actually calling you out on things." "I'm counting on it." They stood in the garden as the sun started setting, and Elena felt something shift. Not love, it was too soon for that, too complicated. But possibility, the sense that maybe, just maybe, something good could come from the disaster her life had become. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of adjustment. Natalie stayed for 5 days, recovering under Marcus's care, before deciding to head back to Seattle. Elena walked her to the car, dreading the goodbye. "You're really staying," Natalie said, loading her bag into the trunk. "For now." "He's into you, you know that, right?" Elena flushed. "It's not like that." "Maybe not yet, but it will be, just—" Natalie hugged her carefully, mindful of Elena's ribs. "Be careful. These people aren't normal. This life isn't normal, and you've got a baby to think about." "I know, I promise I'm thinking about the baby." "Good. Call me. Actually, call this time. Don't disappear for weeks." "I will." Natalie left, and Elena felt the loss like a physical ache. But she also felt something else. Determination. She'd made a choice to stay. Now she needed to make it count. She started spending time in Luca's office, learning about the organization. It was less dramatic than she'd imagined. Lots of spreadsheets, logistics planning, personnel management. Yes, some of it was illegal. Import and export turned out to be a real thing, just with less than legal goods mixed in with legitimate shipping. Protection services that were more extortion than security. Money laundering through various businesses. But there was also legitimate work. Properties Luca owned outright, rented fairly. A construction company that did actual construction. Investments in local businesses that created real jobs. "This is what I want to expand," Luca told her one afternoon, showing her the legitimate side of the ledgers. "My father built the criminal side because that's what worked in his time. But times change. We can transition, slowly. It'll take years, maybe a decade. But it's possible. Why haven't you started before now?" "Because I was maintaining, not innovating, keeping everything running, keeping everyone alive. You don't have time to think about the future when you're fighting to survive the present." He looked at her. "You make me think about the future." Elena's pregnancy started showing around week 16. Just a small bump, easy to hide under loose clothing, but undeniable when she looked in the mirror. Marcus monitored her carefully. Weekly ultrasounds, blood work, nutrition plans. The baby was healthy, growing right on schedule. "Have you thought about names?" Marcus asked during one appointment. Elena hadn't. Thinking about names made it real in a way she wasn't ready for. But that night, lying in bed, she let herself imagine it. A girl or a boy, dark hair or light, Ryan's features or hers or some combination. Ryan. She hadn't thought about him in weeks. The man who'd kicked her out felt like ancient history, someone who'd happened to a different version of herself. Her phone, returned to her after Natalie left, had messages from him. Angry at first, demanding she return the coffee maker and other items she'd stolen, then confused when she didn't respond. Then finally, weeks later, a short text. "Hope you're okay. Sarah and I are engaged." Elena deleted it without responding. He didn't deserve her energy. Valentina remained suspicious, but thawed incrementally. She started including Elena in morning briefings, testing her opinion on various decisions. Elena learned to speak up, to push back when something seemed wrong. "This protection contract," Elena said during one meeting, pointing at a proposal. "The business owner is paying 20% of gross revenue. That's not protection, that's extortion." "It's standard rate," one of Luca's lieutenants argued. "Standard doesn't make it right. If we're trying to transition to legitimate business, we can't be bleeding people dry. 10%, and we actually provide real security services, not just the threat of what happens if they don't pay." Luca considered this. "Make it 12%, add actual security consultation and installation of proper systems. We take a smaller cut but provide real value." The lieutenant looked unhappy but nodded. Valentina watched Elena with something that might have been respect. "You're good at this," she said after the meeting. At what? Seeing the problems everyone else is too close to notice. It's useful. Irritating, but useful. Coming from Valentina, that was practically a declaration of friendship. The months passed. Elena's bump grew. The organization shifted slowly toward more legitimate operations. Luca started attending city council meetings, presenting himself as a local businessman interested in community development. The irony wasn't lost on Elena, but she also saw it working. People responded to him, trusted the confident man in the expensive suit who talked about job creation and economic development. "You're good at this too," Elena told him after one particularly successful meeting. "The legitimate businessman thing. You could actually be that person." "I am that person. I'm also the other person. That's the complication." "Then be less of the other person. More of this one." "It's not that simple." "It could be." Spring came. The snow melted completely, revealing gardens that were actually beautiful when not buried in white. Elena walked them daily, her hand on her growing belly, talking to the baby about nothing and everything. She was 5 months pregnant when things fell apart. It started with a phone call. Luca answered, listened, his expression darkening. Then he hung up and looked at Valentina. "The feds are investigating. They have a witness." "Who?" Valentina demanded. "Someone from the Baldini operation. Someone who saw enough to be useful." Elena felt her stomach drop. "What does that mean?" "It means they might have enough to bring charges, racketeering possibly. They're building a case." Luca was already moving, pulling files from his desk. "We need to prepare." The next week was chaos. Lawyers appearing, documents being shredded, people being moved to different positions or quietly disappeared. Elena watched it all, feeling helpless and complicit in equal measure. "This is my fault," she said to Luca one night. "The warehouse. I was there. If they have witnesses, you were never officially there. No records, no footage that shows your face. You're safe." "But you're not." Luca stopped packing the file box he'd been working on. "I've been not safe my entire adult life. This is just another version of it. Don't do that. Don't act like this doesn't matter." "What do you want me to say, Elena? That I'm scared?" "I am. That I wish I'd made different choices?" "I do. But wishing doesn't change reality. The feds are coming, and I have to deal with it." "How?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The indictment came on a Tuesday. Federal agents arrived at the estate with warrants searching everything. They took Luca in handcuffs along with 3 of his key people. Valentina escaped charges, but only barely. Not enough evidence connecting her directly to the operations they were targeting. Elena stood in the entry hall, 6 months pregnant and terrified, watching them take Luca away. He looked back once, caught her eye, and mouthed something she couldn't make out. Then he was gone. Valentina immediately went into crisis mode. "We have the best lawyers. They'll fight this. Luca will make bail. We'll prepare a defense." "What can I do?" Elena asked. Valentina looked at her. Really looked. Taking in the pregnancy, the fear, the determination. "You can stay out of it. This isn't your fight." "Yes, it is. I'm here. I'm involved. Tell me how to help." Over the next 3 weeks, Elena learned more about criminal defense than she'd ever wanted to know. She helped Valentina organize documents, coordinated with lawyers, managed the household staff who were panicking about their futures. She visited Luca twice at the detention center, awkward conversations through reinforced glass where they couldn't touch, couldn't speak freely. "You should leave," Luca told her during the second visit. "This is going to get ugly. Trial could take months. I don't want you trapped here while... I'm not trapped. I'm staying by choice." "Elena, stop trying to protect me by pushing me away. I'm pregnant, not helpless. I'm staying." The trial started in her 7th month. Elena attended every day she could, sitting in the gallery with Valentina, watching prosecution witnesses describe operations, transactions, violence. Some of it she'd seen. Most of it was news to her, proof that Luca had been shielding her from the worst of what his organization did. The prosecution was building a strong case. Luca's lawyers fought hard, but the evidence was damning. Elena watched him sit at the defense table, composed and calm, and wondered how he did it. The turning point came during the 3rd week. A witness, former Baldini associate, claimed Luca had personally ordered the hit that killed 2 people during a territory dispute. The lawyers objected, but the testimony stood. That night, back at the estate, Valentina was pacing. If they convict on that charge, he's looking at 20 years minimum. There has to be something we can do. Like what? The witness is credible. We can attack his character, but he has no obvious reason to lie. The prosecution has him in witness protection, immunity deal. He's golden. Elena thought about the testimony. Something had bothered her about it, but she couldn't articulate what. She went back through the trial transcripts Valentina had obtained, reading late into the night. Then she found it. A date discrepancy. The witness claimed the meeting where Luca ordered the hit happened on March 15th, but Elena had checked. March 15th was the day Luca had rescued her. She remembered because it had been their 2-year anniversary, the night Ryan had destroyed her life. Luca had been with her that entire night, rescuing her, getting her to the estate, dealing with her injuries. He couldn't have been at a meeting ordering hits. She brought it to Valentina first thing in the morning. This is wrong. The witness is lying or mistaken. Luca was with me. Valentina grabbed the documents, scanning them. You're sure? Absolutely certain about the date? Positive. It's burned into my memory. They brought it to the lawyers, who verified it. The defense recalled the witness, confronted him with the timeline. Under pressure, he admitted he might have the date wrong. The prosecution scrambled, but the damage was done. The witness's credibility was shattered. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Elena sat in the courthouse, Valentina beside her, waiting. Her baby kicked against her ribs, active and restless. She whispered to it, "Your unofficial dad might be coming home today. Or he might not. Either way, we'll figure it out." The verdict came back. Not guilty on the most serious charges. Guilty on lesser counts, money laundering, some financial crimes. Sentencing would come later, but Luca's lawyers were already negotiating. House arrest instead of prison, given his cooperation in shutting down other criminal operations. Elena wasn't allowed in the room when he was released, but she was waiting outside when he emerged. Older somehow, more tired, but alive and free. He saw her and stopped. "You stayed." "I told you I would." "You're enormous." Elena laughed, the tension breaking. 8 months pregnant will do that. They stood in the courthouse hallway, people flowing around them, and Luca did something he'd never done before. He pulled her into a hug, careful of her belly, and held on like she might disappear. "Thank you," he whispered, "for finding the discrepancy, for staying, for everything. We're not done yet. You've still got sentencing and house arrest to deal with, and a whole organization to legitimize. I know, but now I have time to do it right." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders. "And you? What do you want, Elena? Really want?" She'd been thinking about this. Through the trial, through the long nights, through every kick and roll of the baby growing inside her. What did she want? "I want to build something," she said. "Not just maintain what exists, actually build something new. A family, a business, a life that isn't defined by survival." She met his eyes. "With you. If you want that too." "I want that more than anything I've ever wanted." He kissed her, right there in the courthouse, with lawyers and reporters and random people watching. Kissed her like it was the most natural thing in the world. And maybe it was. Natural didn't mean easy or simple, but it meant right. The next 3 months were a controlled chaos. Luca under house arrest at the estate, working with prosecutors to dismantle the last of the criminal operations in exchange for reduced sentencing. Valentina running the legitimate business expansion, surprisingly good at it. Elena preparing for the baby, taking online classes in business management, learning everything she could about actually running legal enterprises. She went into labor on a Tuesday night, 3 days before her due date. Luca was allowed to leave house arrest for the hospital, under guard supervision that was awkward but necessary. Labor was horrible. 18 hours of pain that made the car crash seem easy by comparison. But at the end of it, she held her daughter, tiny, perfect, screaming at the unfairness of being born. "She's beautiful," Luca said, staring at the baby with something close to awe. "She's loud." "That too." Elena looked down at her daughter, unnamed still because she hadn't been able to decide, and felt everything slot into place. This was what mattered. Not Ryan's betrayal, not the car crash, not the trial, or the danger. This tiny human who depended on her completely.
Sophia, she said suddenly. Her name is Sophia. Sophia Carter? Elena looked at Luca. Or Sophia Moretti.
If you want that. I want that more than anything, but she's not mine. Biology doesn't make a father. Being there does, and you've been here. You saved both of us. Elena held Sophia out to him. You want to hold your daughter? Luca took Sophia carefully, like she might break. The baby quieted, staring up at him with unfocused eyes. He smiled, real and unguarded, and Elena's heart did something complicated in her chest. Not love yet, but close. So close. 6 months later, Luca finished his house arrest. The organization had been fully restructured, all criminal operations shut down or transferred to other families with clear separation from the Moretti name. What remained was legitimate, harder, less profitable initially, but clean.
They married on a Saturday in early fall. Small ceremony in the estate gardens with Valentina as witness and Sophia as the noisiest guest. Elena wore a simple dress, Luca wore a suit without bullet holes, and the whole thing took 15 minutes. It was perfect. That night, with Sophia asleep in the nursery and Valentina off managing something that didn't require criminal activity, Elena and Luca sat in the library where they'd first really talked. Do you regret it? Elena asked.
Giving up the organization. The power. Not for a second. I regret not doing it sooner. Before people died, before the trial, before any of that. Luca pulled her closer. But I don't regret how it ended. Because it led here. To you. To Sophia. To actually having a future instead of just surviving. We're not done building it yet. No, but we will, together. Elena thought about everything that had brought her here. Ryan's betrayal that had seemed like the end of the world. The crash that should have killed her. The stranger who'd saved her and become her family. The baby who'd survived against all odds. None of it was perfect. None of it was easy. But it was hers. Theirs. A life built from ruins, stronger for having been broken first. Sophia cried from the nursery. Elena started to get up, but Luca was already moving. I've got her. You rest. She watched him go, this dangerous man who'd become gentle, this criminal who'd chosen legitimacy, this stranger who'd become everything. And she smiled. The story that started with betrayal and blood had become something else entirely, not a fairy tale. Fairy tales didn't have trials and house arrest and legitimate business complications, but real, messy, human, and absolutely, undeniably theirs. Outside, snow started falling again. The first of the season, light and soft. But Elena wasn't afraid of blizzards anymore. She'd survived one already, had been reborn in the aftermath. Whatever came next, they'd handle it, together. The future, once impossible to imagine, stretched out bright and uncertain and full of possibility. And that was enough.